Hello, welcome to the Growing Design podcast, where we help you grow your design agency. If you want to learn how to price your services, how to sell your expertise, and how to attract the right type of clients, you've come to the right place. I'm your host, Ed Orozco. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Growing Design. Today, we have Steph Cruchon with us, and he's going to be talking about design sprints and the value of design sprints and how to sell the value of design sprints and workshops in general as a design consultant or design agency. Steph, can you introduce yourself a little bit for the audience?
Well, thank you so much for having me today, Ed. So I'm Steph. I'm a designer based in Switzerland, and I've been doing design sprints for the last 5 years. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Design Sprint Ltd, so highly focused on design sprint. And before that, I was a more classic UXer. So I've been in UX for the last 15 years, working on very big products and websites for the last 15 years.
Yeah, you guys were the first, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys were the first company in Europe to offer design sprints as a service, right?
Yeah, in Europe for sure. Maybe even in the world, because back then it was mostly done at Google Venture. And I think I've been lucky enough to be one of the very first to offer it as a service for companies, yeah.
And also, you sort of started, I don't know, this is just sort of what I understand. You started doing it even before the book came out.
Yeah. So it's such a long story. So we are in 2021 now. Wow. And I started running Design Sprint in 2015. But something that people don't get about Design Sprint, they think that it's new, it's a new concept or it's a new thing. It's not. Like the first design sprints, they were run at Google Venture 10 years ago, the very, very first ones. But back then it was hidden. It was kind of a secret methodology that Google Venture were using, created by my good friend Knapp, who was a designer back then at GV. And it just wasn't public and no one was talking about it. And when so I was a designer. I was working for very big products like World Economic Forum. I worked for banks also. I was designing bank apps back in the year 2005, 6, 7. And then 2015, I discovered I wanted to work closer to my clients. That was the idea, because I've been, a production UXer. I've been in these big companies and I saw how inefficient the things were. And I got that, I got a job that I hated at the time. I'm not gonna say but for a very big company, kind of IT company, very well known in Switzerland. And I realized how broken the process was. And I just wanted to work closer to the clients. And at the time I was working with, agile teams that were doing sprints of agile, like development sprints. And I was a designer and I came up with that name, I should do sprints of design. So it was early 2015 and I just took the domain name designsprint.com like for myself, for my own, for my own workshops or my own thing. And one day, I just write on Google my own website, Design Sprint, and I discovered that thing, it was on the blog of GV, the Design Sprint, how we do it at Google Venture, and I read that. It was just blog articles, blog posts at this moment. And I was like, oh my God. And it was, it was exactly what I had in mind, just so much more mature and, run at Google with all the startups. And that crazy cool guy, Jake, was explaining all the recipe. And I was like, this is so cool. So I wrote to that guy, to Jake Knapp, and I asked him, okay, sorry, because I took the name and I didn't know you guys existed and that you were doing that. But it looks amazing. Can I have more infos? And so he gave me informations and I asked him, can I do it? Am I allowed to do it? He said, oh yeah, of course. I'm writing this blog post because I want people to do it. And I think it's awesome and I'm really excited. And he told me, yeah, I'm going to release the book in March 2016. So I knew in January 2016, I just quit my job. I started my own company. The first sprints, I ran them in 2015 before the book. And was the first to launch the service around that. And we became good friends with Jake.
So, if I understand correctly, you came up with the same name they came up with without knowing that they were thinking about releasing the book under the same name.
Yes, exactly. Which makes a lot of sense, because when you are into design and you are a designer, at some point you work with teams that are doing agile and that are doing sprints. So doing sprints of design made sense to me, and that's how I discovered the methodology super early, basically, because no one knew about it. At least maybe in San Francisco or in the tech cycles. I was in tech, but in Europe, and we are always a bit late. But yeah, that allowed me to discover it really, really early, and that was fortunate.
Maybe we can pause for a second and explain a little bit the difference between development, agile sprint, and design sprint, because it could be, I know it can be misleading, especially for people that are already working in tech and have been working in development. It's not the same thing.
No, at all. Actually, so I came into the concept through that, but it's totally different. The sprint means that it's a certain amount of time. It's a time box activity, basically. So typical agile sprint, it's more about engineering and development. It's like 2 weeks, and the design sprint, it's typically 5 days, and it will gather designers, business people, engineers can also be part of it, but it's like way more global. It's more about the whole concept, getting to the right ideas and prototyping things. So it's typically UX. It's not at all engineering.
Yeah, the way I see it, the design sprint is more about generating ideas and deciding which direction to take. And the development sprint is building that idea and how fast or how efficiently can we build it.
Exactly. The sprint typically comes really at the very, very beginning of the project, or even before the project. And when you know what you have to do or to build, then you can do agile sprints to actually develop the solution.
Yeah, that's I think it's mind blowing, the fact that you came up with this so early, that even before the book. Like, I don't think people realize that. Probably a lot of people say like, "Oh yeah, this guy is he read the book and just started running sprints." No, you were actually taking a very active role in what would end up being the shape of design sprints as we know them today. So I think that's very cool, and I knew that, and I wanted to like cover that part because I think it's very, very interesting for the story of design sprints. I want to ask you, why did you decide to focus on design? I know that you were working on doing some workshops before, and you wanted to be closer to the idea generation part of the product development cycle. But why did you choose to focus on such a specific niche?
Yeah. I mean, that's super interesting. The point is, first, you need to focus. It's super important. You can't just do the same as everyone else, and you need to kind of specialize yourself. If you do UX, I see so many agencies that fall into that trap. They try to do everything. Oh yeah, we work for all types of products, and we can do wireframe, we can prototype, of course you can do all of that. The problem is that you are not specializing yourself, and you're not being very good at what you are doing. And myself, well, I studied in tech something like actively, so professionally 15 years ago, and I was also doing some front-end coding, so being very late in the chain, like on the food chain. Basically, when everything is decided, you are just the guy who is just building it. So I've done that, and then I've been, coming, closer to the beginning of the project. So I was being a designer and then UXer. So my goal was to have an impact, basically. And because I'm not saying engineers don't have impact, they have tremendous impact, but they don't have an impact on the strategy or the decision most of the time. They are building what was already decided before. And I just saw that the sprint was an amazing opportunity for me as a designer to have an impact, but also to act a bit like a guide, because I'm from Switzerland, and It's sad to say, but the country is not that technologically aware or fast in general about digital transformation, and people need a lot of guidance. And I felt at some point that, after all these years of being, in the trenches and building all these projects, I have something to add, and I can really guide them to that process. So that was the idea. And also it's terrifying to run workshops if you don't know what you are doing and you are a young UXer. Yes, you're laughing. So it's really scary. And what I love with the sprint, and especially when I discovered the book, how well it was, how well the recipe was written in the book, and it was so clear to me. I had, kind of a guide. I knew I could follow that and it would work. So yeah, if I'm running a workshop, I want it to work. So that was the point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of designers want to have a role, have a say in the way the product is going to look like or work, but they don't want to go and talk to the client, and they don't want to take a more active role in the idea conception, or they don't really know how to have those conversations. So they end up just doing whatever comes from, like you said, the top of the food chain. You mentioned something that, yes, front-end developers and developers are at the end of the food chain in the product development cycle. However, one of the cool things about the design sprint is that you have multidisciplinary teams coming in together to work together, right?
Exactly. And I mean, that's what I thought was so, for me, to be honest, I think the design sprint is a total game changer in the way you work and the way you approach work and project. And that's why it works also for non-tech projects. You can run design sprints for all kinds of problems. Maybe we're going to talk about that later. And what I love is that I've been some kind of developer myself, a really bad one, but I was a developer. And I know how frustrating it is to have to build something that you know is not right, that you know is not going to work. And I think that's just an amazing format to. It's 5 days, it's packaged, and you can ask, engineers, data scientists, or whoever. They can be here as part of the conception of the strategy of the product. They can bring everything they know, and you just go faster. And for them, it releases all that frustration. They have a say to the future of the project. And for me, that's a total game changer.
Yeah, and it's so important, I think, because developers know the technology. Ultimately, they're the ones that are building that layer between what's happening in the brain, or like the API or the application, and what the user is experiencing. So I think they're the last stop before, or like the last layer between the product and the user. Well, maybe the hardware is going to be one step ahead, but we don't have a lot of control over the hardware as designers and developers. Let's talk a little bit about the value of design sprints. What have you found is the most valuable benefit, or the most valuable outcome of running design sprints in your organization?
So, okay, now it's 5 years. I run Design Sprint, and I run probably more than 120 myself. So with all kinds of company, and I think that's very important to note. So it's not only tech companies, or it's not only cool kids, I will say, startups. I've been running design sprints with really very classic corporates, or even governments, or people being very old stylish in the way they approach things, and that's okay sometimes. I thought the value was just about speed. I thought, because when you read the book, and it's like, you can accomplish in 5 days what will take months, or sometimes even years, because you bring the right people together in one room, you figure out the problems, and then you find solutions, and you prototype them, and you test them at the end of the sprint. So it's really packaged, and it's great. But I realized that speed is important, but it's not what matters the most. After 5 years, I can say it's more the empowerment of the teams, of the employee, of the fact of building something, conceiving something together, and that you can bring any employee of the company, and that people can have an important role in the strategy of the product. So it's not, top down with the senior manager who has to figure it out. It doesn't depend from one person. For example, it's not the designer who needs to find all the solution. No, it's the team, and you can really bring everyone in that process. So this for me is really key. It's also a great way to just teach UX to a team. It's like you don't know what user experience is, just do a design sprint, and you will see exactly how this works. How you come up with ideas, you select the best ideas, you prototype them, and you test them at the end of the week. The test at the end of the sprint, it's always that aha moment, that people are like, what? Because they thought before that you have to build the product for real, to launch it on the market. Maybe it's going to take 1-2 years, and then you start having answers. The sprint, you start having answers at the end of 5 days without even having a real product. So it's that team spirit, that energy that you can create around the project. That's the real value.
And these are people that usually don't have the opportunity or the space to collaborate, because each one, if we choose one person to represent each stage of the development process or the product development process, they're not going to be talking to each other all the time. They're going to talk to each other every once in a while, maybe once a month or twice a month. And they probably talk for about 2 hours in a meeting where there's like 30 people.
Yeah.
Where nothing is really happening. Someone's playing Candy Crush and they're not really exchanging, which is one of the most fascinating things about the design sprint is that it's a moderated discussion, because humans are really bad to brainstorm. And I think Jake Knapp says this, that brainstorming doesn't work because it's not organized. There's always someone who's very shy. There's always someone who's very loud, and the loud person is going to talk over the quiet person. So it's not the best way to make sure all of the best ideas are captured. Whereas with a design sprint, there's no room for informal discussion. Everything has a methodology and a process that you follow. To me, that's really great, because I think this should be applied not only to design sprints, but the way we communicate in companies and teams, how we work around solutions, not necessarily for product development, but for every problem that you have to discuss and brainstorm in a company.
I think Jake and the teams at GV, they wanted to design a process that's very fair to everyone. It's not the loudest voice in the room that wins. It's not the manager that has the best idea. It's like one part that's very interesting in the design sprint is that everyone's gonna come up with a concept individually. So you don't know what others are actually designing or doing, and you discover that, and that's anonymous. So you are judging ideas, and you don't know who is behind the idea. So maybe it's the senior manager, but maybe it's just it could be the intern, for example, who was on that sprint. And I think this is so great, because you talk about ideas and not about persons anymore, and that makes it really, really fair. And I just love that way of working. And also I love, because I'm a designer and I'm also a consultant, because I bring the sprint in companies, but I don't have that responsibility of finding the ideas myself or telling the teams, you have to do that. Of course, I will bring my opinion if I'm asked, or if I have something to say, I'm going to say during the sprint. But at the end of the day, it's the team who chooses what's the concept they're going to save, what they're going to prototype. And my role is to guide them. And I have to admit, I'm an expert at the process of design, but I'm not an expert in the field. I've worked for cosmetics, for example. I don't know anything about cosmetics myself. I'm not even a client. Look at that. But I can guide these teams to actually achieve really good work. And they are the expert of the field.
Yeah, that's one key thing that I think people tend to forget, which is the client is an expert in whatever it is that they do, because they build a business around whatever it is that they do, like let's say cosmetics. But you as a design consultant or as a design firm, your expertise is making things happen, just helping them organize their ideas and make decisions.
This is so important. I think also about the ROI of the sprint. There are so many projects that have gotten further thanks to the sprints. They were pushed forward that otherwise would have just been stopped or killed very early on. Because when you innovate in general, it's so easy to have someone saying, oh, but sorry, it's not the right time, or we don't have the budget, or it's too hard, or I've seen somewhere someone who does the same, and this kills the project very early on. And I think the sprint, it gives a good chance to these innovative projects. The projects are not anymore just a PowerPoint slide or a vague idea. It's a prototype. At the end of the week, it's a test, and it's way more solid. So you're just giving the project a better chance to move forward and to become real. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you get really high quality data, because if you're just making a very basic prototype on PowerPoint, the user that you're testing it with knows that it's just a basic prototype. So that's going to condition the type of feedback that you get.
Exactly.
So let's talk about we've talked about how, like, what's the value for design sprints and why they're so important, not only for product development but for decision making, because they're very fair. Like you mentioned, it gives everyone an anonymous voice where you're deciding ideas based on ideas and not on rank or person.
Yeah.
You guys also have developed a lot of templates to help people run their own sprints. In Miro or Miro. If someone from Real-Time Board or Miro or Miro is listening to this, please send us a message and teach us how to pronounce it, because no one really knows.
No one knows, that's true. So I've been in touch with some people in-house in there who say Miro. And I've been in touch with some other people who say Miro. So even inside the firm, I don't think it's clear.
I have another one. There's Miro, because I thought the name came from the artist,
painter.
So the painter. So Miro could be the right way of saying it. I don't really know. We want to know.
Could be.
But you also you did some templates for them. You also did some templates for Mural and for Invision. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the templating really comes from COVID crisis, basically. I think it's important to note that at this moment that before COVID, the sprint, when you read the book, the sprint, it's a totally in-person thing, workshop, analog with paper, stickies, all of this. And when COVID hit, everything stopped. We just couldn't run workshops anymore. We couldn't gather in the same room, and everything had to change. So, there was that idea that it was possible to run remote design sprints. There is that guy, Robert Scroby. You can check his website. He's from Dallas, and he was probably the first to really experiment a lot with that idea of remote design sprints. But what they were doing were more like experiments, or I couldn't recognize really the sprints that they were doing during these experiments, because it wasn't really 5-day, it wasn't really the same type of workshop, but the tools were here and the exercises were there. And I was really following that. I was like, okay, that's interesting, but there is no way I can even sell that in my own country, in Switzerland. Back then, it made just no sense to do it remotely when we could just gather in one room. When COVID hit, I knew the first thing we had to do was to move remote. It was crystal clear. So I had the tools, I had the knowledge of the methodology, how it's supposed to work, real full 5-day design sprint. And I had to build the templates for myself to run sprints. What I did, so I built a template, and I was quite nerdy, because since I have now quite a lot of experience in running these workshops, I know how many stickies it takes for each exercise, how many ideas are generated, how much of space, of real estate it takes on the wall. So I could take all that experience and make, I think, pretty good online templates. Started with Mural, so the pink one, not the yellow one that is Miro. And started there, and then Jake Knapp and John Zeratsky, the creators of the sprints, reached out to me and were like, Steph, we are writing a guide to run remote design sprints, and could just show us what you guys do. So I showed them the template, and they were like, oh, wait. And they looked at the template, they were like, oh, okay, this is neat. This works. Yeah, we can say that it works, and that's cool. And it's actually Jake who asked me, would you be okay that we kind of finish the template together? because probably there were horrible typos in English, or he had ideas on how to improve it a bit more. But that we finish the template together, but then that we distribute it under the Design Sprint name, and we make it kind of the official template for Design Sprint. So yeah, I was psyched, and I think that was great. So we took some time with Jake and John and Jackie Colburn also, who was part of it, who is a great friend of John and Jake. And we took the time to really, we took the book, we took the sprints, they wrote some very clear instructions, and we just finished the template. That was released on Mural, and then we made the Miro version. And along the way, Invision reached out because they saw that it was getting popular. Because what's cool is that now a lot of people are using this template to run their own sprints, including us. And yeah, Invision also, they have that nice product called Freehand that is kind of an alternative to Mural or Miro, and they wanted the templates as well. So we made it for them. And yeah, it's just cool to see all these people who are using the template worldwide. And yeah, that was our contribution to the remote design sprint.
I think that was really awesome that you guys made that public and free. Because like you were saying, that like a lot of companies when COVID hit, or a lot of design firms were like, how are we going to continue working if we always run our workshops in person and we cannot meet? And then that thing, when I saw it, I think I saw it on LinkedIn or something, I immediately shared with all of my friends and all of my designer colleagues, because I was like, this is so well done. And of course it is, because you guys have all of this experience of running the real sprints. So like you said, you know how many post-its it took to for each section. So you had all the knowledge. You were in a great position to make like the official template. So that was very cool, and I think the whole design community is very thankful for that.
Thanks.
So that was very nice.
So yeah, you can actually find the template. You write official design sprint template, and you're gonna find it. What I wanted to say about templating, it's not hard to make a template in general. Like, it's not hard to distribute a template, but it's hard to make a good one. Really hard, because I've seen there are many templates that exist for all kinds of workshops, including design sprints. But what I see, a lot of people fall into the trap either to make something super complex with millions of artboards and you have no clarity, or super lean and you don't even know where to start. And I think with that one, we have something that is in the sweet spot. It's easy to use, yet it's deep enough to, like, it's really the tool that we use. We don't use any other template than this.
Yeah, so the whole point, I think I heard Jake say this in an interview one time, that the whole point of making the original sprint so analog and with papers and with whiteboards is to separate us from technology, because technology is so distracting. Last night I was actually having a conversation. I was on another podcast, not this one. I was invited to on another podcast, and we were talking about the importance of simplicity. Simple is good. The more simple things are, the easier they are to understand, and especially if you're working with all this complexity that building a product is very difficult, and collaborating with people to build a product is very difficult. So the easiest it is to work with the tool, or the easiest it is to use the tool, the better for everyone, because you're gonna get more people on board, and you're gonna start actually creating value instead of fighting the tool or fighting the template.
Exactly. It's the design sprint is very deep and very rich. You could talk or read for the end of your life about that, because it's so deep. But when you take the book, for example, it looks, it's an easy read. Maybe it takes 1 day or 2 days to read it, and you're like, oh yeah, simple. No, it took them 150 sprints, I think, with companies like Slack or Uber, before writing the book, before they were confident that, okay, this is the book we're gonna write. So I see a lot being written, people running one sprint or one workshop, and they write full articles. And but it's not about the quantity; it's about the quality of what you put out. And yeah, to make things look simple. Like, about the template, some people reached out to me and were like, "Oh, you should add this exercise or this exercise or this or this or this." And I'm just asking them, "Yeah, but what can I remove? Because it's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it, even more to the point with less things."
Wow, that's so deep and so impactful. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna add another exercise unless I know it's better than what I already have in there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's so great. Um, okay, so for you, what's the difference between doing production work, the classic product development work, and versus doing workshops like the design sprint and all the things that you've been doing before?
Hmm. I think it's a matter probably of experience and seniority. At least it's hard to compare, but when I was a young designer, I only cared about making nice things, on Photoshop, and I was an illustrator, and I wanted to make shiny things. And I see that a lot. You go on websites like Dribble, you have contests of the best glossy icon, the best whatever. So I've done that for years, and I love that. And at some point, you realize that probably you're not gonna be the best visual designer in the world. There are some crazy guys anyway, and the competition is crazy. And also, probably you have more impact not spending 20 hours on one icon. You see, to accept that it's good enough to be used, and sometimes the best designs are not the most pretty. I would say so. Once I understood that about the impacts of my work, I started to lose interest in just pure visual design. So I went into UX to work on functionalities and why we are doing things. Start with why. And I think the workshop is just another step. I know a lot of great UXers who just love to do projects, and they stay in that realm of pushing very big projects. Workshops is for a specific type of people who are okay to speak in front of people, who are okay to lead people, and who are okay with high level of uncertainty. Sorry, because you need to guide them. It's blurry, it's messy. We are creating new things that just don't exist. So of course, you're gonna have pushbacks. You're gonna have people who are starting to panic, people who are gonna be aggressive even, and you need to be able to just guide them in a nice and meaningful way, and that's you just give that energy that makes the project start or move forward. And I just felt maybe there are some people who are better than me at this, but I just felt that it was time for me. I was the right person for that, and it's kind of it's kind of a niche where not that many people are, because it takes a lot of years of experience to feel comfortable doing that and to feel relevant. There is that imposter syndrome, and it just takes time to feel good.
Yeah, and how do you feel? Do you think is there a difference between running sprints in Switzerland and in Europe versus running them? Because I know you guys have done sprints for other companies outside Europe, right?
Of course, yeah, and actually more and more. I think one of the big milestone, thanks to COVID, is that we are becoming more and more international in a way. So, maybe 1 year ago, most of my clients were in Switzerland or France, because I'm obviously a French speaker, so that was my a big asset. But now we have more and more, and even like all our clients now are international, and they come to us because they just want to do good design sprints. Because it's not enough to just read the book and run a sprint. You need to have clear guidance and experience. Even the templates are great tools, but you need to be able to use them well and to create that energy. And because people, if they commit to a sprint, they want result. So I would say there are differences in running sprints in Switzerland versus the rest of the world, but I will say it's more about the mindset and awareness about technology in general. Switzerland is probably a bit late, and we saw that the first month of COVID in Switzerland, it was the full panic to get just webcams or just work from home was already a big thing, for the companies. So maybe that explains why we don't run that many remote design sprints with Swiss companies, because they are still there trying to figure out how to work remotely, while many companies worldwide otherwise have figured that out and are just more advanced. So I I would say when I run sprints in Europe, I'm being more like a teacher. I really teach the process and explain why we are doing these exercises. And when I will work with a startup from North America, I will be less about the process, but more about doing the work and the energy than teaching the process. That's the difference, I would say.
And do you feel like your clients from Europe, since you're more sort of teaching the process, do you feel like they are more, their mindset is more about learning how to run the process internally versus other clients wanting to actually run the process with you?
Yeah, it's a mix. Definitely, it's people reach out to us because they want to run proper good design sprints, and they want to learn from us and to see. There is always that idea, oh, how can we internalize the sprints, have in-house facilitators or run it uh, for a lot of projects in-house. And I mean, we are fine with that. Now we are, at first, of course, I was a bit defensive. I was like, ooh, they are trying to steal all our knowledge that we gathered. And now, no, I see our role as thought leaders in that space, and as we have a lot of experience to share. And I'm really happy to be kind of a mentor for companies to help them. Yeah, we run the first design sprint, and then we help you run design sprint in-house if you want. And yeah, I think it's where we can bring value. Mhm.
Yeah, I think overcoming that fear of other people stealing what you know
Yeah,
is a big step. It's a big milestone. But once you do, it's amazing because people don't really want to steal it. They just wanna learn, and that doesn't mean that they're not gonna keep coming back to you for more advice because you're still seen as
exactly.
the expert.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's like when you react like that, it shows that you're not very comfortable about who you are and what you can do and what's your differentiator. Um, that's why I was fine to share the template, because even if that template took me a lot of time to design and took us a lot of thinking, um, I think it's just great to share it. But anyway, us running sprints with our template, we're adding way more value than just using the template. That's what companies are looking for now. They are looking for not only run design sprint, but running good design sprint, especially when they are the first design sprints in companies. Because you have just one chance. If you're an innovation manager and you want to bring the sprint as a methodology in your company, you need to have very good experiences, the first ones, so you can tell the story of these successes in a way. And then you will be allowed to organize more and more sprints. And you just can't fail your first sprint.
Yeah, and some of them will actually manage just with your template and the book and the videos to run successful sprints internally, and that's fine.
Yeah,
More power to them.
exactly. The thing is, there is also one thing that we are consultants and we are external to the company, is that we don't compromise. And maybe I can explain a bit more about that. I know what works. I've run so many sprints and I've made even experiments before the book came out. So I had my own ideas and exercises I wanted to do, and formats about number of days and everything. I know what works. And what I see a lot of companies that try to internalize the sprint, there will be that big boss who says, oh, 5 days is too long. There is no way we can do that. So let's do a 2 days design sprint, or let's do it in 1 day. And it just comes as a constraint that he's not believing just the process, or he wants to challenge. And the problem is that if you are an in-house facilitator and it's your first sprint, of course you're going to compromise. You're going to say, yeah, we're going to do something in 2 days. You know what? It's not going to be good. It's not going to deliver the right results. And I think now we have the confidence and the experience to tell no. Follow the process. I'm telling you, the recipe is good, and follow the process, because we had these successes in the past. We also had failures, few failures, but the failures were probably because we didn't respect the process, or we tried another direction than what actually works because we were asked to do it. And when I looked back at my sprints 5 years ago without the guidance of the book, and what we do now, wow, we we did a lot of mistakes, and I just don't want people to redo these mistakes.
Yeah, and those mistakes reinforce that what you're doing is the right way of doing it. Because when you deviate from that methodology, you don't get the same results.
Yeah, exactly. And what I love also is that it's I see it a bit like a blue jeans. It's a methodology that works in all kind of context, and that is actually run all around the world. So we are in very close contact with some top-notch facilitators worldwide. We're on the Slack group. We exchange sometimes daily with some of them. So even if I operate in Switzerland or in Europe with French-speaking clients or European clients, I get insights from the US, I send insights from Europe, and we talk about the same thing. As soon as you start running one day's design sprint or whatever, you don't talk about the same thing anymore. So you can't learn from each other anymore. Yeah, I really see some value in talking about the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking if you want to do a 1 day sprint or a 2 day sprint, and that's fine if you feel like that's valuable for you. It's not the same thing, but you're just coming up with a new process. So it's going to take you a lot of time to develop it, to mature, to test it until you're comfortable with it. And if you actually manage to develop it, please write a book.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because
it's
we want to
exactly that.
learn.
You know what? It's discovering that book. At first, I was doing my own thing before the book came out. I discovered the book, and I was like, yeah, it's easy to read, and yeah, it's really good. But there were things I was kind of disagreeing with. I was, we can do it faster. Maybe I'm not gonna do that exercise. I don't see why I will do that. And I was challenging a lot. And over time, I've realized that I've tried. When something was failing and not working well, maybe it was working with one team, but I was doing it with the second team and it wasn't working. And finally, I was trying to add exactly the way Jake and John were doing and having conversations even with them. And I realized how smart it is and how it's really literally standing on the shoulders of giants. They have run so many sprints, and they wrote the book when they knew it worked. And I've done the same. There were a lot of things that I was doing at the beginning, and I was a newbie, and now I realize how good the book is and how deep it is. You can read it 10 times, and you discover some more details that you can add to your sprints, and oh yeah, it actually works.
Yeah, and it's also, I think it was great that you already had some experience before you read the book, because you read it with an skeptic mindset, challenging
Yes.
every exercise. So that sort of stress tests the ideas in the book. And for you, it's like, okay, this is solid. I already,
Yeah.
I've done it differently. Now I'm trying it this. I prefer this way. Now I feel more confident with this methodology.
Yeah. Exactly. You need to, but I think that's not specific to the sprint. That's about anything you read. If a book becomes a bestseller, it's for a reason. It's because the book is really good, or there is something very important, or that applies not only to you or to one specific company, but that can apply to thousands of companies. And you need to try to understand the value in that book. And yeah, you can have that critical, you read, you're like, yeah, but I'm not sure it's gonna work for me. You know what? Just try it. A lot of people start changing it before even trying it. And my best advice is try it once, twice, and we talk after.
Yeah, there's no amount of advertising that can replace word of mouth. When a book like this becomes so popular, it's for a reason. I don't think Jake on his own and John would have been able to promote it at the level of popularity that it is today by themselves. The reason the book became so popular is because a lot of people read the book and tried it, and they felt like it really worked, that it really delivers a lot of value. And so they recommend it to other people, and they talk about it, and they YouTube about it, and the idea spread.
Exactly. There are some people in the field of UX maybe who saw it as a threat, because if you have your process that lasts 3 months, and then someone's telling you, oh, look what you can do in 5 days, it just looks you are trying to cut the time or cut the cost and whatever. It's not that. It's the sprint comes before the project, basically. So as soon as you have understood that, it's not taking anyone's job. It just ensures that when the project is even becoming a project, it's for a good reason. Is that there is a reason to build that thing, and eventually, what is built is becoming better products because they have a reason to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk very briefly about your experience organizing the iToday conference. I know that was a very challenging endeavor. Can you tell us about how because you started promoting the conference before COVID, and then
Yeah, good timing, right?
perfect timing to plan a conference, and then you had to like switch to remote. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's such a cool story and journey. So basically, we were thinking how we can promote the design sprint to people who didn't know about it, because I think it's super popular in the niche of UX design or design thinking field, but it's still reaching the same people over and over, and it's a niche of people who are tech aware. But we realize that the sprint can be used in for all types of challenges and for really non-tech companies. And we're like, okay, we want to create an event basically that's going to talk about innovation in general, including design sprint as an important piece or method for innovation, but talking from a broader perspective in Switzerland. And it is still, but basically it's the idea was to have Jake coming in person in Switzerland at the EPFL Swiss Tech Convention Center. So if you don't know, EPFL is one of the most famous university in Switzerland for sure, and one of the most famous in the world. I think it's like top 30. A very important university, and there is a congress center right there, and we have links with them, and we're like, yeah, let's organize a really big ass event about innovation there. And Jake is gonna come, and also Alex Osterwalder and Yves Pignat, who are the author of the book that's behind me, The Invincible Company. They are the creators of the business model Canvas as well. So really, like big important people in the field of innovation. So we had all of that figured out. It was really looking good, and we launched the event. It was like December 2019, and we started heavily promoting it in January, and it was supposed to happen in August. COVID hit, and like in early February, and that's really a bummer because when I've put so much of energy, money, that we had to pay up front, and so much of investment in building that, and then you're like, it's like everything falls apart, and you're like, so at first we had good hopes that we could organize it in August, but then we saw that the situation really was getting grim in Europe, and we had to go remote. And so I learned how to stream things, how to get a bit into that game of podcasting or YouTubing or whatever. And we run, so iToday Summit was a remote summit. And still we have, what we decided to do is to keep the masterclasses as an in-person event. And we have good hopes that we're going to be able to do it this year. Same place, EPFL. That will be end of August. So August 18th and 19th at the convention center. That will be in person, and if we can't do it because of COVID, now we know how to use the digital tools, and it's going to be virtual, but we hope not.
And can people still sign up for the masterclass?
Of course, of course. You can go on itoday.ch, and you can sign up for either Jake or Alex Osterwalder's and Yves Pignat's masterclass, and we have also a cool package combo if you want to attend both. And we think it's gonna work because from a very big conference that was supposed to be 700 or so people in kind of an auditorium, we went to a more intimate workshop. So it's gonna be max between 50 to 100 people per day, and it feels next August with vaccines, with heat and sun, it looks like it's gonna be possible.
Yeah, hopefully we're gonna get rid of these horrible evil thing that's COVID. Because as much as the remote sprint is being very successful, we're sick of this situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's we embraced change, and we went really far, in organizing virtual events, and I think it works. But if we have a shot, if we can still meet each other physically, I don't want to, I want to try. I think it's what people want still, and if we can make it work Yeah, and we are really able to adapt very fast now, so it's cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. So hopefully that's gonna work out. I'm definitely gonna be there. Um, all right. So Steph, thank you so much. It's been amazing. It's been a huge pleasure to have you on the podcast and talk about all of these very cool things. Where can people
You're
go to
welcome.
find more about your company, Design Sprint, and about yourself and about the iToday conference?
Sure. So for iToday that we just talked about, it's itoday.ch. That's where you get posts about the masterclasses this summer. We have a monthly event that's called iToday Apéros, kind of happy hour thing with talks each month. So you are welcome. That's for free. And if you want to know more about Design Sprint and my company, you can look on Google. It's Design Sprint Switzerland or design-sprint.com. The company is called Design Sprint Ltd. And if you want to follow me closely, I'm mostly on LinkedIn, so under the name Steph Cruchon, STEPH.
I'm gonna add all of these links in the show notes so that it's easier for people to just tap and follow you. All right, so there you have it, folks. That was Steph Cruchon and the history of Design Sprint. And thank you so much for listening. Steph, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you for having me, Ed. Really, really cool.
See you soon. Bye.
Yes.